Sanitary authority owning, operating, and maintaining the public sewage facilities for that service area. There's other steps in the process. Several were mentioned in Mr. Stevens' letter, meaning getting capacity availability letters from Clairton Municipal Authority, South Park Township, Jefferson Hills Borough. We're the primary, when I say we, Peters Creek Sanitary Authority is the primary owner of the Peters Creek Interceptor from the county line to Clairton. But we would need to get those municipal capacity availability letters to couple with Clairton's that would ultimately go into the plan, be advertised for a 30-day review and comment period, public review and comment period, and then following all that, submitted to DEP for approval. So those are the general steps. I think they're outlined in the schedule. But those are the steps forward, and it follows, Peters Creek authorization last month.
So we're at sort of a decision point. It's fair to say that we recommend moving forward with the expanded scope if we're willing to pay our fair share according to the agreement. If that's not agreeable, then we can look at a smaller scope, but that orange section would not get the entire thing. We'd have to reduce scope.
Right.
Like Gilmore Drive and places like that. That's why we're here.
I had a phone call today from Mr. Burnsworth. He would like to express his concern with the lift station's location. Is there any other options for that?
Well, I think that's one of the items necessary moving forward, and I think it's also included in Banks's letter, is in terms of the MOUs, the scope of the work relates to or related to right-of-ways, property acquisition. That's included in the township scope. And I think we need to meet with the township. If the township's willing to move forward, as Mr. Levy mentioned, we meet to discuss those roles, responsibilities, and also open a dialogue with Mr. Burnsworth.
Maybe the best thing you talk to Mr. Burnsworth is to give him an idea of what the lift station would be. How big would it be? How
Correct.
intrusive would it be to the property? What would you guess, that lift station?
Actually pretty small.
Size of the table?
No, it'd be larger than that. 20 by 20, 20 by 30. That would be the footprint, the way the property lines lay out. There's a discussion with actually two property owners that should be had. The Walton property that is kind of bisected by the gas line right of ways. The majority of the lift station would probably be on that portion of the property. But it's dialogue that we need to have.
So if the township says we're gonna go along with this today, or next, whatever. This is, again, it's a concept, so yeah, we're not even DEP or anything like that.
We're close.
Are you familiar with our lift station on Cold Bluff? Right over the hill here? It's similar in size to that.
So what you ought to do, you talk to Mr. Burnsworth, take a picture and give him an idea what, maybe it'd be more palatable to him.
Agreed. I guess that would be the next step, is to have a dialogue with Mr. Burnsworth and Mr. Walton, yes.
I can give you his phone number, but he was concerned and off put by just looking out and seeing you guys in his yard.
Understand, yes.
So he said he'd be more than happy to answer the phone, but he was a little off put that he didn't know what was going on in his front yard, and he is concerned about reduction in his property value and what he may wish to do with his property in the future and how this would affect it.
Yes.
So I told him I would convey that to you guys and see if there was any other option, or if you can have a dialogue with him to ease his concerns. I don't know what he wants to do with his property in the future, or how this will affect it, but the dialogue needs to happen for his benefit.
So
Absolutely.
you did look at other locations.
Yeah, we did look.
Across the street. In fact, I think Union Township had condemned a piece of,
We
piece of
do own a
property.
piece of property across the street.
So we thought that was the most logical, but from a technical standpoint, I think that
Yeah.
didn't make sense.
Yeah, the other site that, Mr. Levy mentioned, we did look at that. It would be difficult to serve the entire area, the entire orange area at that site. That site's also pretty soft. And so, you
How
know,
much would it reduce it? Like, you said it wouldn't be able to do the whole area, would it be able to do somewhere in the middle of the two?
everything kind of below the township's site there, driving south, would need, some sort of pump or grinder pump to pump in.
If this is gonna be Peters Creek, I'm assuming Peters Creek, PCSA would do the eminent domain, or do you want us to do the eminent domain?
Who would acquire the property for the lift station?
I think, is that not
It's
memorandum
an
of
MOU
agreement?
that we do,
I
right?
think the MOU, the town, that would be a township
Responsible for all
responsibility.
easements and-
So, okay, so basically, the project cost, we expand goes about $2,041,000.
Yes.
How far off is that in the future? If we go in a good clip, 2 years from now? 1 year? How quickly it take to build the system?
Well, we're,
Do we have to come up with the money?
I'll be candid with you where we're currently at. The planning effort and the design effort is being done in parallel. Meaning that the planning effort, as soon as we submit the 537 plan to DEP for their approval, the permits are coming right behind them. So the thinking in terms of the schedule would be bidding, late winter, early spring, and construction next year.
2024.
Yes.
We were trying to think if whether or not we had funding opportunities we could look for, if there was enough time for that, if we decided.
That is the disadvantage of these LSA programs, is we can't use funds received for costs that have previously been incurred. We could only, once a grant is awarded, then you can start to
But it
incur
was
costs.
Funding as far as penance
So say for instance,
And that's what you can,
Like a
we
loan.
can get quotes on that
so
as well.
say for instance, there's 250,000 debt for Peters Creek and $250,000 debt for the township.
additional.
I'm talking about debt, because, the project's composed of different facets. You have your TAPI, which is your loan, you have your, grant monies, and then you have debt, correct?
Yes, typically, yes.
So the user rate is gonna be composed of O&M and debt service, correct?
The user rates on, which slide here, that would be for, and again, this is the anticipated costs. The user rates, each customer, each existing customer currently pays a.
Page 11?
11 and 12.
Oh.
Same one.
That's it.
Oh,
So utilizing page 12, Peters Creek's rate structure is a $20 minimum charge, okay? There's a $15 debt service charge. That relates directly to CMA sewage treatment plant expansion debt.
Okay.
Okay, Peters Creek Sewer Authority, we don't have any debt, okay? And then our operating costs are calculated $8.25 per thousand for anything in excess of 2,000 gallons. So the minimum charge is $20. That essentially gets you the first 2,000. Anything above that is billed based on $8.25 per thousand, and that was adopted by the board in July of 2014. That's been their rate since then.
So, what I've done before in different sewer projects, or water projects, we would always create a sewer district. Is that something we would do here?
In this case, I wouldn't think so. It's part of the Peters Creek Sewer Authority service area.
Okay, so you basically, everyone in the service area picks up the debt for this project?
In terms of
Say
Peters
if
Creek,
there's debt, in Peters Creek, are you saying other people that live in Peters Township would help pay the debt off, or what?
the discussion that we've had at the Peters Creek board meeting is that the board would not need to borrow money to pay their prorated share
Okay.
of the additional costs. So there wouldn't be any debt service from the authority side of things.
It's unique.
Well, it's part of the tapping, so we do expansions, sewer line extensions, we do rehabs, things like that all the time. So who pays for that? It comes out of that 5150 that people pay. Anyone that wants to tap into the system, they pay the tap-in fee. So ideally, whatever outlays you put out for this project, future residents are gonna pay for as part of the tap-in fee.
Correct.
Well, that's,
Well, this is item number 6 in my letter,
this year.
which
Do I have it?
addresses,
I had it.
you know, Lennon Smith has prepared the 537 plan, user rated tap-in fee based on the Peters Creek, situation only. There hasn't been consideration given to Union Township, and any debt service that would be taken on by Union Township as part of this project. So I think the user rate component of it is, probably not applicable, but the tap-in fee component of it for the customers in this area is, I think, something that we need to consider. And that's gonna be, that conversation is going to hinge on how Union Township intends to finance their component of the capital cost. And once that determination has been made, then we can figure out how that impacts our tap-in fee, or potentially impacts the tap-in fee. And, you know, whether or not Union Township starts to recuperate some of the capital.
It won't affect the tap-in fee. My point was in principal space, future users, the tap-in fee is generated so that people pay their fair share of the system that's already built.
Sure.
And so people that, all the repairs that we do today, yes, everyone pitches in and pays for it. Anyone else who comes into the system, that's how you generate what the tap-in fee is. The tap-in fee is not gonna change from what you see here.
From the authority's perspective.
From the authority's perspective, what I'm saying is there an additional charge that Union Township
You could-
can apply to the tap-in fee that would effectively make the tap-in fee different for customers as part of this project?
So you would have no objection if we would do something like that?
Yeah, that's your.
Because that would be that's how we get our local contribution.
Yeah, that's how you would finance it.
Right,
Yeah, I'm saying it's an option that should be considered.
and you wouldn't oppose that,
I don't think we'd have any grounds to oppose it.
and again, say for instance, we would get, you know, what, we got 30 customers here or something?
30.
30, just say 30. So we have a debt of like $500,000, and we could get 30 times a couple $1,000, it's still not much, but then we'd have, I did a project in Malone Ridge, in Canton Township, with Legion. So basically what we did, we created, now there we created sewages, because the township did the project. But would you have any objection to also the township doing a debt service on those customers from our perspective? Would that be a problem?
And I'm assuming it would be just two separate items. For example, PCSA will have the costs as outlined in this
Correct.
presentation. And then we wouldn't hinder whatever Union Township is trying to do, whether you're creating your own separate district to.
Yeah, we're not creating, I mean, well, you're gonna own the lines, right?
Right, but billing wise, it's gonna be a separate issue.
Well, we could bill, but it would have to be just.
What I'm
No.
saying, we would do our traditional billing, but you're looking to recoup your,
Cost.
your debt.
Right.
Yeah, your costs. So are you thinking you would also bill those customers as the debt service charge?
With Visa, it goes through Visa.
Well, like we do with Legion, which is W, Washington, East Washington,
Yeah.
20. What we do there, we did a PNC bond issue. So what we did is we also made as part of the user rate, we have a separate debt service to recoup some of our money.
So Weeze is actually collecting that for you, and then do they,
They deposit.
okay, they deposit or
Well,
technically like write you a separate check for that amount?
And then you use that to pay back Penvest or PNC or whoever.
They
Okay.
deposit it into a sinking fund that they deposit however often they deposit, and then Penvest pulls out once a month.
So are you hoping that Peters Creek takes care of that part of the billing and
If-
we
if we-
add a
if-
line item?
If it decides, again, this is just concept.
We're just
So-
saying, the way that you guys said that you spread your cost across all of your customers, but they're all being serviced by you.
Mhm.
We have to spread our costs across an entire township that isn't being serviced by this.
Right.
So we have to figure out how the people that are being serviced by this extension are, you know, that someone that's nowhere near Finley Elrama Road isn't spending for Finley Elrama Road. We
Right.
can't evenly split it because they're not all the same customers like they are with you guys. We're
Right,
just-
understood.
We're
So
just trying to think of ways that
what your
we're
options
not
are.
burdening people that aren't affected by the system, by paying for the system.
So the first thing, if someone's been sitting down in Elrama saying, why am I paying for the construction or installation of an expansion?
While I'm already paying my own debt
Right.
service.
I've seen that all the time.
Yeah.
The people in Overlook are paying theirs, and, Elrama's paying theirs, and then to also have to somehow pay Finley Elrama Road's extension is just, it's not even.
Right, yeah, you have a different setup.
Than you
than
guys,
we do,
yeah.
Right.
And I certainly understand that logic and that dialogue sitting, as an engineer for multiple municipalities that have that same, perspective and have that same consideration. I guess my point being is that prior to the township authorizing the advertisement of that, whether or not you're going to, say, borrow money for the gap and then pass it off in terms of those 33 customers, that'll need to be decided and factored into that prior to the 30-day review and comment period. And so, so that our residents know what, how they're being charged, the proposed financing of the project, things like that. So, that's my only point, that, that decision will need to be made before, the Board of Supervisors authorizes the advertisement.
We're just kind of spitballing ideas on how to fund the expansion. We have other people that are desperate for storage in the community, and it's like, well, they're gonna help pay for it, but they're not,
Understand? But that's one of the key elements that's in Mr. Stevens' letter, and, again, that's a policy decision. And again, that the supervisors need to discuss, take under consideration, and that'll be factored into that plan at some point, after that decision's made.
So PCSA wouldn't be averse to the town considering that or doing something like that?
You'd be willing to start discussion?
Yeah, I think we're safe to say that, wouldn't we?
Like, Phil, do you see any reason why they couldn't do that?
I don't know. I don't have to think about it. I don't see an issue.
But at least the door for discussion would be open for that.
Oh, yeah, witness.
We could, and the tap in as well.
It would just be a separate from PCSA. So
Correct.
when we had a workshop with the residents that are affected, and we explained to them, these are the fees that you're gonna pay, which is in here on either slide 11 or 12. Then we would just have perhaps a separate slide that said, and you're also gonna have to pay this, which is part of your Union Township structure. That's all.
Oh, that's good, Steve.
Right, similar to like, I live in Union Township, so I have a street light bill.
Yeah,
Something like that, it's just a separate entity.
and it's quite frankly, that it's worth it to get sued.
Correct.
It's worth it to get sued. The last house I lived in, I bought it for a quarter of what I sold it for, and the only purpose was sewage.
That's a good example.
Yeah, so I mean, it's worth it, yeah, did I have a debt service for the 20 years that I lived there? Yeah. And does the person that lives there now paying it, but it made that, it was worth it.
Right.
Worth makes a huge difference in somebody's life,
Yeah, for sure.
so. Not that we wanna make it that they can't afford it by any means, we don't wanna make it unaffordable for these people, but we also have to think forward too, we have other places to sewage, and, it is costly.
For sure.
Certainly appreciate being before the township this evening. In other items that, I'll ask Mr. Stevens to kind of bring up his letter, that was emailed last night. Frankly, I think that letter, is positive in terms of the project. And what I say that is, at some point, we'll respond to that letter. There's some key points in there, some language cleanup that needs to happen. There's also some other elements in there, that when the plan and the permits are submitted to DEP, if that's the direction the township decides to go with adoption of the 537 plan, it'll make the planning and permitting process smoother from the perspective that, you know, the state would see, okay, here's the 537 plan, okay, here's the township's comments, okay, here's how they were addressed. I think that would make the state feel more comfortable approving the documents.
Why do you have a 25% contingency fee, by the way? Why do you have a 25% contingency fee built in?
That's industry standard, given where we're currently at, and,
Is that right?
in the MOU, the estimates that were in there, I believe there was a 10% contingency, a 5%.
What's that?
15% engineering, 10%
Soft cost.
contingency, 2%
Yeah.
administration.
Okay, so we have a $2 million project. What's the soft cost for that $2 million?
That is 25%.
Okay, so that's engineering, it's 25, soft cost, engineering, all that.
Yeah, land costs, things like that.
And when you say 25% contingency, is based, you're saying that includes the engineering cost, or for what?
Yes, it's 25% soft cost and contingency, or contingency and soft cost.
So the contingency fee, the contingency fee is built in to the engineering fee, is that what you're saying?
It's soft costs and engineering, 25%. They're
Okay.
both baked in there.
Okay.
The updated construction value is around 1.7. Add the 25% contingency, gets you to about the $2 million threshold.
All right, maybe I'm not understanding. So the soft cost is when you say contingency, that's the soft cost. Is that my understanding?
It's contingency and soft cost.
Okay, so that's built in, all right.
It's $227,000.
So the contingency is usually, like I said, when I've done projects before, the contingency fee is like 10 or 15%. Is that what that's what I've learned over the years. I'm not talking about, engineering's a different story.
Yeah, usually we plan for 10% contingency. When the MOU was presented, earlier this year, contingency and soft costs were broken down as two different line items. And when they presented it in the 537 plan, they included all of it into one line item, which is why it increased from 10 to 25%.
Okay.
It's one combined line.
All right, so they basically combine it together.
That's correct.
So, Mr. Stevens, any of the key elements from your letter that you want to bring up to the township supervisors and the authority board, and just have